The stars above the orchard. Marin had not been back to the orchard in 10 years. Not since her grandmother passed, not since the last apple harvest, not since the summer she turned 20 and left the village for the city. But tonight, she had driven 3 hours on roads she barely remembered, parked her car in the gravel drive, and walked through the gate that still squeaked the way it always had. The orchard was the same, older, of course. The trees had grown taller, their branches reaching higher than she remembered. But the layout was unchanged. 6 rows of apple trees, planted in neat lines that her grandmother had measured, with a piece of string and 2 sticks. At the far end, where the land sloped gently downward, there was a clearing. That was where Marin was headed. She carried a blanket over one arm and nothing else. No phone, no book, no plan. She had come because the sky was clear, because the air was cold and sweet, because something inside her had been asking for this place for months, and she had finally listened. Ground was soft under her boots, fallen leaves from autumn, decomposing into the earth the way they always did. The apple trees stood bare against the sky, their branches like dark veins against the deep blue of early evening. A few stars were already visible, faint and tentative, as if they were not sure they were allowed to come out yet. Marin reached the clearing and unfolded her blanket. She laid it on the ground, the way her grandmother had taught her. Smooth the wrinkles first, then press the edges flat with your hands. She lay down on her back and looked up. The sky was enormous. In the city, she had forgotten how big the sky could be. There were no buildings here, no street lights, no glow from screens and signs, just the sky, wide and open, stretching from one edge of the orchard to the other, and in that sky, the stars were beginning to appear. It started slowly, one star here, another there, then more and more, until the sky was dotted with them, hundreds of tiny lights, each one steady and bright. Marin watched them the way she had watched them as a child, lying in the same spot on summer nights while her grandmother sat in a chair nearby and told her the names of the constellations. There was Orion, easy to find because of the 3 stars in a row that made his belt, and there, the Big Dipper, pouring its light across the sky, and over to the left, Cassiopeia, the queen who sat on her throne in the shape of a W. Marin whispered the names aloud, the way her grandmother had taught her, and the words felt like a prayer. The air grew colder. Marin pulled the edges of the blanket around her shoulders, but did not get up. She was warm enough. The ground beneath her was soft. The blanket was thick, and the stars were so beautiful that she could not look away. She thought about her grandmother, Agnes, who had planted every tree in this orchard with her own hands. Agnes, who had known when each variety would ripen and which branches needed pruning, and how to tell, just by touching an apple, whether it was ready to pick. Agnes, who had stood in this clearing on clear nights and looked up at the same stars and said, "They are watching over us, Marin. They always have been." Marin had not believed that as a child. She had believed in science, in telescopes and light years and the speed of light traveling across the universe. She still believed in those things. But she also believed, lying here in the orchard with the stars blazing above her, that there was something more than distance and physics in the way they shone. They felt close tonight. They felt present. They felt like they knew her. A breeze moved through the orchard. The bare branches of the apple trees swayed gently, making a sound like soft breathing. Marin closed her eyes and listened. The wind moved through the trees the way water moves through a riverbed, finding its path, touching every surface, leaving nothing untouched. It carried the smell of cold earth and dormant wood, and the faintest trace of something sweet, like the memory of apples. She opened her eyes again. The sky had deepened from blue to black, and the stars were at their brightest now. The Milky Way was visible, a pale river of light stretching across the center of the sky. Marin had seen photographs of it, of course, but seeing it with her own eyes was different. It was not just a band of light. It was a presence. It filled the sky the way music fills a room, completely, gently, without asking permission. Marin felt something shift inside her. It was not a thought, exactly. It was more like a loosening, a knot somewhere in her chest that she had been carrying for years without knowing it. The knot had to do with leaving, with staying away, with all the things she had meant to say to her grandmother and never did. The knot had to do with being busy, with being tired, with forgetting what the stars looked like. The knot loosened, and Marin breathed. She lay in the orchard for a long time. The stars moved slowly overhead, not rushing, not spinning, just drifting the way they always had, the way they always would. The cold deepened, but Marin did not mind. She was held by the ground, by the blanket, by the trees that her grandmother had planted, by the sky that her grandmother had loved. At some point, Marin realized she was smiling. It was a small smile, the kind that comes when you are alone and comfortable and the world is quiet. She smiled at the stars, and she thought, absurdly, that they smiled back. Her eyelids grew heavy. The stars blurred and sharpened, as her eyelids drooped, and she let them close. She did not resist the sleep. She let it come, the way she had let it come as a child, lying in this same spot while her grandmother's voice wove stories into the night. The last thing Marin saw before she closed her eyes was the North Star, bright, steady, unmoving. The star that had guided sailors and travelers for thousands of years. The star that her grandmother had pointed to on their first night in the orchard, saying, "That one, Marin, that one will always be there." Marin slept. The orchard held her. The stars watched over her, the way they had watched over this land for longer than anyone could remember. The apple trees stood sentinel, bare branches reaching toward the sky, gathering starlight like water gathering rain. In the morning, Marin would wake to birdsong and cold dew on the blanket. She would sit up and look at the orchard in the pale light of dawn and feel, for the first time in years, that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. But that was morning. Right now, there was only the night, the stars, the orchard, and a woman sleeping peacefully beneath a sky full of light. Music track, Thoughtful by Pufino, royalty-free music. License, https:// fritos.com/license. This episode is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or deceased, or actual events is purely coincidental. This podcast is intended for entertainment and relaxation purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you are experiencing persistent sleep difficulties, please consult a healthcare professional.